We got about another 30 seconds and we'll get started. People will be hopping on. We got quite a group of people that registered. So give it just a couple of seconds here and we will dive right in. If you want to go ahead and go in the chat and let me know how things are going for you tonight. All right, we got Doug from Kansas. I'm in Wisconsin. So we're supposed to be 75 degrees tomorrow. Northern Illinois. Like that. You're not far at all. When I hear Northern Illinois, I hear that it's definitely pretty darn close. I'm not too far from the state line. I'm probably 20 minutes maybe from the state line. Oh, 82 in Kansas. Wow. Well, tomorrow we're supposed to be 75. We're going to have some potential storms heading our direction tomorrow night. So going to keep an eye on that. And of course, 'tis the season for the spring weather. Last year we got hit in February, pretty unprecedented in Wisconsin to be hit in February. And we had some pretty severe tornado damage in February. So, all right. Well, I think I'm going to go ahead and get started. Let's dive in. Hey guys, what's up? And welcome to my Liberty journey, my Liberty story. I'm Laura Baker, founder of Everyday Horsemanship, and I'm really excited that you're joining me today and wanting to hear more about my Liberty story. I'm really dedicated to helping horse owners build deep, trusting relationships, authentic relationships with their horses through Liberty training. And through my journey, I've learned that true liberty isn't just about fancy tricks or perfect performance. It's really about the connection and the trust and the communication between you and your horse. And I'm here to share my story, and that includes the highs, the lows, and there's quite a few lows in there, the moments that changed everything, and the lessons that transformed the way I train and connect with horses. So if you're looking to deepen your bond with your horse and want a relationship based on trust and understanding, you're in the right place. This is where it is. And let me tell you, liberty is a journey. It doesn't, while you can achieve liberty circles pretty fairly quickly, the process of how you evolve into really understanding and reading your horse's response to you, reading your horse's behavior, that part is a journey. So if you stay with me until the end, I'll be answering any questions you have about Liberty training and how you can start or continue your journey. So make sure that you stick around for that. And also, as always, the replay will be emailed out as soon as it is ready. I would say probably most likely tomorrow morning. So, so just to tee this up for those of you who are new to following me or new to my Liberty group on Facebook even, I perform with a Liberty team of horses nationally in front of large audiences. In fact, this year I'm pretty excited about this, I've received an exclusive invitation to Medora, North Dakota, which is the gateway to Theodore Roosevelt National Park. Maybe some of you have heard about the Medora musical out there. So I've been invited to perform with my new Liberty team of 7 horses. Some of them are not new. Some of them will be new to the team. but a team of 7 horses for an event this fall at the rodeo grounds. So talk about an honor, because they identified out there the what my horses and I do and the relationship that we have, and it's pretty exciting. This year, I'm also performing with, this is just a couple of the performances I do, some of the highlights, and it's not the only ones I'm doing, but I'm also performing with the Buffalo Bill Traveling Wild West show, which is taking my horses to new heights and giving us all new challenges and goals. Um, I'm always seeking new ways to share with people the relationship that I have with my horses. I'm really passionate about it. And so not only do I look for ways to perform, but I look for ways to educate. And so this is a combination of those. There's a performance aspect and then an education aspect within this. And so I'm really excited for it. I do I have to say, one of the things that when I first started with Liberty, I never, I never would have dreamed that I'd be outperforming with my team nationally across the United States. I was just invited to a clinic in Oklahoma today. I've been invited to one in Pennsylvania. So I've just never imagined that I would be doing something that I love so much. And uh, a little bit about me in that respect is that I did start doing this full time a year ago. So I'm at a little over a year ago, actually 13 months ago, I made this my full time operation. And because I am so passionate with helping people achieve the dreams with their horses. And honestly, Liberty is just plain practical horsemanship. It really is. And so when I started doing Liberty myself, secretly, like, some many girls, we all have these dreams of being a princess or being a performer. Maybe not everybody does, but I mean, growing up, I loved to perform in front of my family, and I used to put skits on, and I loved being in front of people, and and I just always thought that this might have been something that was out of my reach when I first started thinking about Liberty. I started thinking about it as just being a way to build a relationship with my horse, and one thing led to another, and here I am today. So uh, it's definitely a dream come true. All right, let's go. So this is Oklahoma. This last year, I was competing in the International Liberty Horse Association Invitational Liberty Freestyle Competition last October, and it was amazing. This particular trip, especially. Anybody who's familiar with Ben Atkinson, he and I were talking about this, and as he told me that this was a highly complicated trick, right? And it was the first time that I had done this, standing on the outside with the 2 horses on the inside together, going around Magica. So it wasn't the first time I'd ever done it, but the first time I'd ever done it in front of an audience successfully. So I had played around with it a little bit in my performances, just on the spur of the moment, and kind of achieved it. But I was still on the fence about whether I was going to do it up until the very last minute. And it was amazing. They did perfectly. And I had a great time achieving, the new goals with my horses and competing with this much more difficult maneuver. So pretty exciting. But I love coming up with new maneuvers all the time with my horses. This one I came up with again on the spot at a clinic I was doing, and this was in November, December this year, so it was after Kentucky year. So they've been working on this a little bit, getting a little bit more refined, and sometimes even getting it in sync where they're right on the same track. pretty cool, right? And, here's another fun one that I had the, opportunity to perform in multiple different shows last year. This was a pretty crowded show. Actually, most of the audience was actually behind me and over to the left, a few people over here, but it was, certainly an opportunity to show off what my horses could do and get them to be prepared for some of the larger events. And so this one was a fun one because what happens here is Magica and Ma are on the inside of the circle. They are opposite sides directly, and Dalton is circling on the outside. So pretty cool. And it's not all teamwork we do. We do a lot of individual work as well. And so I do enjoy my individual time with my horses. So I just wanted to point out that it didn't start there. It didn't, it actually all started here with Cisco. And that was in 2014 after finishing my master's degree. And my kids were grown and I was ready to jump into my dream of owning a horse. And I didn't really know a ton about horses. I had some experience when I was younger, family, friends, but really, I can't say that. I mean, really, but compared to what I know today with horses, I really didn't know anything, and and I just knew I had this Western dream of trail riding with the family, since I finally had all this extra time. And so our youngest, she was 14 at the time, and it was we just decided to go ahead and find 3 horses and board them and learn everything we could. And so Cisco entered my world, and he was my first what I would call training experiment. And I call it an experiment because I think I did everything wrong initially. I really did. I wanted to build this relationship with Cisco, but I was trying to communicate with him not in a way that he could understand, because I didn't really understand all of that at the time, but it was in a way that I thought that he would understand. So in a way that humans talk, and the not that I'd say, oh, Cisco, go do this, Cisco, do that. I knew it was different than that. And I knew that there was some negative reinforcement at the time. I didn't even know the term. But I knew some of that, but I just didn't know how to use things effectively. And I think that, raise your hand or go into the comments if you would, if, some of you may have had horses for a long time, and and you just, maybe it took a while to grow into this, but those of you who waited until later in life that you got a horse, maybe some of that was some of the things that you had to learn too. And I did, and I knew I had to learn it fairly quickly. It was part of my personality too, but I was spending every night with Cisco, night after night, learning all that I could for taking care of horses. And I did manage to teach him how to roll a barrel or how to ground tie, let me stand up on top of him, and all that fun stuff. I should have put a picture of that actually up there. And and that way you could have seen that. But anyway, um at the end of the day, I still struggled with that relationship with him. And really, not from my perspective really, because I really enjoyed being with him, and I just loved him to death, or still love him to death really. But from Cisco's perspective, uh Cisco probably didn't have the same relationship that I thought I had with him. So for me, he was like a big dog, and I had a lot of growing pains to figure that out, that a horse is much, much different than a dog. And there are some training theories that are the same, but we cannot treat a horse like a dog. They have a different personality and a different motive, and all kinds of things that horses are a predator and dogs are, or I mean, sorry, horses are a prey animal, dogs are a predator. But anyway, in Cisco's perspective, I don't think he was as bonded to me. He did enjoy, I think, the time that we spent together all the time on a regular basis, because I could tell he was a little standoffish when I'd go multiple days without working with him. And that's part of now, as I know today, the training consistency that really helps to build that relationship. But essentially, what happened is Cisco bucked me off. He ran me into some trees. This was all some separate instances, right? He bolted in a hayfield with me on his back. And he actually ran all the way back to the barn. I was out in the hayfield and I didn't know what I was doing. I really didn't. This was, again, he was my first experience. He was, I knew that I was getting some bumps and bruises and I needed to figure it out. So I knew I needed help. And I had no order in my training. I just kind of went and did things haphazardly. And I obviously wasn't getting results that I needed. And at this point, I was as far from liberty as I could potentially have been. And I first started taking in initially a lot of free online trainings I could find. And I went to YouTube. I found Clinton Anderson on YouTube. And I was actually starting to see some results with that. And, mind you, the man himself, some people love him, hate him, whatever, but it's the method we're talking about, the step-by-step method. That's really what we're focusing on, not the individual, because I know there's some people that just absolutely hate him, but his methods are workable and they are step by step, and that was great. And at the time, I was learning fundamental groundwork. I was learning how to move a horse's feet. I was learning how to establish hierarchy and leadership and all those things. And I think that really helped give me the foundation that I have today. But it didn't give me the liberty, but it gave me a foundation. And unfortunately, with Cisco, I started to realize that Cisco had more problems than just training. While we were building this relationship, which was great, I started questioning certain things with him, and that was one thing led to another with the vets, and it led me to that he had bad hocks. And arthritic hocks, tried some injections, tried some OSPAS, tried everything under the sun, but it just we could manage it where he could be a great trail riding horse, and he just I knew that Cisco would not be able to be the horse that I could grow with to do some of the things that I wanted to do. Even when you look at Liberty training, when it comes to hocks, it can be as bad, as his word, doing small circles weren't really recommended in that respect. Straight lines, motion is lotion. So still use them for light stuff, light work, not hilly trail rides. But he is kind of that beer drinking horse, that, the husband horse that you could put anybody on him to this day, and he's just phenomenal. But as I've alluded, I did not send him down the line, even though he was not going to be able to do everything that I needed him to do. I still have him to this day. So I love Cisco. I just don't get to spend as much time with him, and that's okay. He's living his best life. So a year later, as you can see in this video, comes Diego. And this video was taken just a few months ago, actually. So I didn't start with Liberty with Diego, so this wasn't starting off with him by any means, but Diego is actually officially now joining the team as one of the 7 horses, and he is actually the next one on the team right now. So Diego was full of himself when he came into my life, and he still is. He's still very full of himself. But I know way more today than I did back then. And at the same start time, I really started looking for new challenges to build my skills. Diego was a great challenge, but he already knew a lot of things. So for me, I just needed to learn how to be that leader, which I did. And certainly I was able to use him for a lot of different areas, but I was certainly striving for more. What I didn't understand at the time was I think my personality was leading me to Liberty because I enjoyed more groundwork than ridden work. I ride a lot. I start horses under saddle. I do extreme Mustang makeovers, but I started really enjoying the work that and the fulfillment I was getting out of building that relationship on the ground with my horses. And so anyway, I decided that I would start opening up myself to new challenges and taking on horses for training. And that's when I first started taking in Mustangs that had never been touched by humans ever. And so that was a pretty pivotal point, I think, in my training, because Mustangs will teach you a lot, especially when they're untamed. They will teach you so much about liberty in general, and about training, and about watching body language, and really watching what your horse is telling you. I think that is one of the biggest, if I were to talk about mistakes that I see, especially new people making, is they are not attuned to what their horse is telling them. They are not watching the subtle body movements. Just the drop of a shoulder will tell me so much about a horse. If the shoulder drops into me, even if it doesn't touch me, I know that horse is really counterbending away from me and not connected to me. I know that also it's possible that that horse could bump into me or shove into me, depending on where we're at in that training cycle. How much that horse knows, and so I'm really attuned to that. If the horse is looking away, I know that they're not paying attention to me. And so it's very, very important that they do, especially at Liberty, because they need to trust that I'm the sentinel that's going to watch over them and be the one that is taking care of them. And that way, there is never a time that my horses should feel that their prey animal instincts when they're with me. They should feel relaxed and comfortable, that I am watching and over them and taking care of them. And that is the trust that we all want. That is the trust that's so very important. And through the process, that's what happens. And then over time, we start to do things like even laying a horse down through natural methods. This is without ropes, and teaching it without ropes, and all of that, teaching them by using shaping of behaviors. So anyway, uh, you know, Magica, I have to say, this is what really led me to Liberty, is this horse right here. And, you know, even though I had a long way to go from the time I purchased her, I did have the opportunity to purchase her as a yearling in 2018. She's a Mustang out of Theodore Roosevelt National Park. And she was my first personal horse that was a yearling, right? She was my first personal horse that was a Mustang. And she was the first personal horse that I had that I taught everything from scratch. So there was an empty slate, right? Just almost like an art board that and I can either take blame for how she is, or I can take the credit for how she is, right? And I take the credit, and because there's, any blame along the way would have also been mine when she maybe didn't stay with me at Liberty in the first initial stages. We're going to talk about that a little bit more, but she's been fun to be with. She's my favorite. I tell people, don't tell her she's my favorite. She is my favorite. And she was fun to teach tricks to. And I was working with teaching her tricks as a yearling and just doing some fun things, teaching her how to bow. And at the same time, about the same time, I started seeing some beautiful Liberty performances by other people. Dan James, I watched Dan James, and I noticed that Dan James' wife started to she was she came up with this idea for the International Liberty Horse Association, which allowed people to compete with their horses at Liberty. So more than just, hey, we go to an Extreme Mustang makeover and we incorporate 30 seconds or 45 seconds of Liberty in a short 3.5 minute competition, freestyle competition. So now this allows and opens up that we can actually do so much more with our horses, and it actually gives a goal and a purpose. So I started thinking about how much fun it would be to teach Magical Liberty. And mind you, again, I had no idea what I was doing. I just knew how to teach fundamentals and how to do some groundwork. And I was the leader in that relationship due to because of doing the fundamental groundwork, and I'd already built and established that with her, and she was a pretty willing partner. She learned when she was young, which was helpful versus some of the other Mustangs I've trained that are much older, and so they are a little bit more resistant. So it does take a little bit longer with them, but I mean, she was pretty willing, and she enjoyed having fun. Well, because of her coloring as a pinto, I looked at that black and white, that slashy black and white, and I always said that I wanted to make her famous. She already had a following of people all over the world that follow these horses from Theodore Roosevelt National Park. And there were people that followed her from the moment she was born. And so I said, you know what? I need to get her out there. I need to somehow get her in front of the public eye. She deserves it. She's beautiful. She's splashy. She's got a fun personality. And hey, while we're at it, why not team her up with her somewhat look-alike black and white paint Dalton? And so I created a team. And again, my Liberty was so at best. The horses would circle around me. They weren't great circles. They were sometimes straight circles. They were sometimes wide circles. Dalton was famous for drifting. But anyway, hey, they looked good together, two black and whites, and I'm a go-getter. And I said, why not apply for the International Liberty Horse Association Invitational Freestyle at Equine Affair in Ohio for the next year? And so I did, and I got in. It wasn't awful. We had a compulsory, and then we had the freestyle. So the compulsory measures your ability to control. So you only do it with one horse when you have a team, but it measures your ability to control a horse through a specific designated pattern that you're given in advance, so you can practice it in advance. And there was a lot of things we're going to talk about, a lot of things I wasn't prepared for. I wasn't the only one. There were others that also had the same issues, but we did manage to place 12th out of 18, which was good. We weren't last. I think that was certainly a goal going in, is not to be last and not to have that high expectation of being first, although it's pretty cool if you are first. But again, to this day, when I enter a performance that's a competition performance, not every one of my performances are competition, but when I enter a competition, I always have this goal in the meantime that is, don't finish last, be nice to finish first, but just do really well with my horses and do the best that I can. But anyway, in this particular one, Dalton, who didn't leave me in the compulsory, thank goodness, otherwise we would have disqualified. if he would have left me 3 times. He did drift quite significantly. And when I say significantly, there was, one particular gate. Other people were losing their horses entirely. I did not. And I still say to this day that is why I got 12th out of 18, is because our compulsory wasn't spectacular, but it wasn't awful. Until we got to the freestyle. So I'm just going to take a quick drink here. If you would, my throat gets dry as I talk. I do a lot of talking for a living. Anyway, the two were leaving me. It happened right, not exactly in the middle, but eventually it was just kind of like, yeah, whatever. We can just kind of do what we want to do, and it looked like a shit show. It looked like a complete shit show. And I even made the mistake of, there's the point where I get on Magica and to ride her bareback and bridleless, which I would do at home for sure. And Magica said, yeah, I'm a little excited right now because Dalton's running around, and so she bucked me off. And I was completely embarrassed. I can tell you, probably, I'm going to say, knowing me, I don't remember for sure, but knowing me, I was probably crying afterwards, not because of getting hurt from getting bucked off, although Magica was not one to buck me off. But in that moment, my pride was hurt pretty bad. And because that was not what I would have liked. They've actually since changed the rules too. So if you actually, for the ILHA, if you have an unplanned dismount, that is an automatic disqualification. Myself and one other person were bucked off their horses. So they did. So I get to have that claim to fame too, that I'm probably part of that reason for them changing that rule. I'm the first place actually winner actually got bucked off her horse too. So anyway, but this wouldn't be the last time that my horses would humble me. And each time I went back to the drawing board, trying to figure out what was wrong. And quite honestly, there were a few events that just didn't go as planned. I thought we were there, we'd go back. I'd get to a point where I was like, okay, they got too much energy, so let me do a little work them beforehand, try to take out some of that energy. Nope, that wasn't the problem. So I had to go on a quest. My horses would follow me. My horses did Liberty Circles at home, but I couldn't advance them, because whenever I tried to advance them, things didn't go good at home either. But so we were kind of stuck in the same area. We weren't going further, and I didn't know how. And I wasn't motivating them, and they were getting bored too because we were working on the same things. I was frustrated, they were frustrated. And that's when I actually invested in every online Liberty library that I could. And I purchased so it was kind of the expensive way to do it. I'm just going to tell you. I purchased every book that I could, and it wasn't just Liberty books. It was everything on relationship, everything that I could get my hands on. And I even invested in some virtual coaching at that time. And although it was much different virtual coaching than what I offer my clients today, it was, it was more like chatting on Zoom, but it did help. And then I did take a clinic one time too, with an individual that came up here and to Wisconsin, and that did help me a lot. I will say, because overall the coaching helped me get on track and resolve the issues I was having. I don't think it gave me in those, because they were like one-offs. I wasn't sticking with one person. All right. And I'm gonna share my screen one more time. All right, everybody should be able to see my screen, should be able to hear sound, although I don't think I have any more sound on. Anyway, so Let me know if you can't hear me or see me. As always, you guys are great. And thanks for putting up with my technology issues this evening. But okay. So as I was talking about with them running off and really needing the help, the coaching that I got really helped me to get on track and resolve the issues I was having. But it, you know, it took a little bit yet for me to get all this figured out and to find out what the true problems were, what the changing, what was my 360-degree turnaround. And uh I had, oh, we have a chat here. Let me just see. Okay, pictures and audio, good. Good, thank you. I'm glad for the update, Doug. I appreciate it. Anyway, but so, not only was I having issues with Dalton and Magica as a team, but I was also recognizing through getting my coaching that I was having some problems that I didn't recognize. I had blind spots and I didn't see them with the horses. And it took getting some coaching that really put me on track to resolve the issues and help me to get more focused on them. And we're going to talk about those issues and really what they were. But, essentially, I got clear in my expectations and my communication. That was a really big part of it. And while I had uh, an order in teaching my horses fundamental groundwork exercises, I didn't have the same order when it came to teaching Liberty. In fact, when I would go out and teach Liberty to my horses, to these two who were my test subjects for Liberty, I'll call them for that. And they're just, I love them. They're just so good. But I was all over the place. I was jumping around, and really it took me to just putting it all together. But once I got the coaching that I did, I started to figure it out, and I knew what to do, and I knew how I needed to teach them, because I understood how to teach my horses in a way that they would understand, and which was far different from back in the early days with Cisco, where I was treating him more like a big dog and loving on him. And not that I don't love on my horses, because I do. I give them kisses, but they don't know what that means. I know what that means, and that makes me feel good. But I hope that they can feel my energy in that way. But I needed to work with my horses in a way that they could understand. And that meant motivating them to actually want to do this thing called Liberty. And it really helped me to teach them what they needed to learn in a very specific way in far less time than what it originally took me. I mean, far less. Quite simply, I realized some really big pieces. I was asking for too much in some areas, and not enough in others. I was expecting them to take a big thing and expect them to be able to do it without breaking it down into those smaller pieces. And because over time, as I knew what to do, as I started figuring it out, I had to go back to the beginning with both of those horses, and I filled everything in step by step. So as a result, I mean, I got clarity in my communication. I started realizing sequencing my cues. I uh, which really helped me to teach them new things and advance them, and to teach other Liberty horses all with less time. I started getting bend in my circles instead of straight circles. I taught my horses to stay connected with me, and that works through with that bend and keeping that bend in that Liberty circle. And it's not because I teach them and I'm done with them because we met a goal of achieving Liberty circles. Our goals just keep getting more advanced. So we learn something, and then I start thinking of something else. What else can I do? Because it keeps us together, keeps us working on things together, and it also keeps it more exciting for my horses. And so there were a lot of shifts where, we're not to all the shifts here yet, because this was in front of a large crowd. That was embarrassing. Don't think for a moment you won't do it sometime. You will, but hopefully not in front of a large crowd. So if you do enough backing up and drawing your horse in, it can happen. It just didn't have to happen there. It just didn't have to. Um, so this really brings me to the moment that changed everything for me. So I was already on the right track, but I wasn't there yet. I wasn't there. And up until that point, I had been doing all of the training exercises. I saw improvements with my horses, was putting in the time, following what I thought were the right steps. But I I still was missing something. Okay. I I had, even at that point, I had transitioned to using positive reinforcement. And I will say, when I first started teaching my horses, I did not use any positive reinforcement. I used negative reinforcement only. And now I've incorporated positive reinforcement. But at the time I started incorporating positive reinforcement, I started transitioning to it, but I wasn't using it correctly. Um, Something was still missing. I wasn't motivating my horses properly. I wasn't motivating them correctly, motivating them to give me the desired behavior, unmotivating them to give me the undesired behavior. So I still wasn't getting the results I wanted, and my horses weren't as engaged as I knew that they could be. So this one, no Magica, no Dalton, same thing. This is in the very beginning. Watch this, because Magic is like, hey, that looks more interesting over there. And I look at Magica and I thought, oh, okay. Now what? Oh, now what? You're supposed to do your split here. And Magica was gone. So I was kind of fumbling around there. Again, Magica was over checking out the audience, everything, but listening to me. And then Magica's like, oh, okay, let me come back. All right, that's great. Okay, Magica, let's go ahead, make sure that you're in. Wasn't reading my horses here. So then I'm gonna draw them back in, get them a little bit back to the center of the arena if we can. And then, oh, Dalton. Dalton's like, oh, maybe she won't notice. I'll just creep away ever so slightly until Magica goes down, and then I'll pick up the speed. Oh my goodness. And even that was not at all what it should have been, but at this point, I would say I was definitely probably at my lowest point with Liberty, and I started diving deep into the psychology of animal training. I wasn't just learning what to do at that point. I was learning why I needed to do it. I was learning the psychology. I started having to understand how horses think, how they process information, and what truly motivates them to want to engage with us and stay with us, instead of being like the naughty child when we go into the store, and the naughty child says, oh, mom, can I have a candy bar? Mom says no. And then the child kind of sits there and has their little meltdown in the middle. Well, that's pretty much how this was in this particular uh, freestyle performance with the ILHA. And it was after this when I started diving into the psychology and the science behind it. That's when everything clicked. And putting it plainly, I had to get clarity in what motivated my horses, and I had to use it correctly. That gave me the desired behavior, as I mentioned, what motivated them and what motivated them not to give me the undesired behavior. But I started using bridge cues, and I tell people all the time, use bridge cues, but I don't see people using them consistently and using them properly. And even at the time, I was not, at this time of this particular video, I was not using bridge cues. And bridge cues help to show a horse what it is you want. They're more powerful because when you use a bridge cue to mark the behavior you want, you you are not only releasing that through negative reinforcement, you're not only releasing the pressure at the same time, so it's like double, it's synergy. You are also delivering a treat reward shortly after that, but it marks the exact moment the horse does what you want, rather than waiting until afterwards and then delivering, digging out this treat from your pocket, and the horse is no longer associating it with it. So they have to associate it with bridge cues. And so I see that that is probably one of the number one mistakes that people make when I work with them. But also, following a simple ABC formula, which stands for antecedent behavior consequence. The consequence is it's not a negative thing. I think we give it a negative connotation. The consequence is either desirable or undesirable based on the behavior that the horse gives. So uh where the antecedent, for example, uh is um as I later learned, was about making sure the horse understood what I wanted, right? So there were two parts to that. I needed to make sure I had the consequence of delivering the treat reward and removing the pressure, or adding pressure in some instances to maybe back a horse up, or to correct their behavior if they're stepping into my space, or they're treat mugging me, or things like that. And then the antecedent, like I said, is all about teaching them and how we shape the behavior and how consistent we are in shaping that behavior. And I would go back and I would look at my videos and I would find that I had inconsistencies in my own body language. I thought I was cueing them a specific way, and I would see I had blind spots, and I would see that I would have my hands in different spots at times, and my body was in different spots, and so I had to go through and watch my own videos and change all of that. So whenever my horses didn't understand what I wanted, really that's when things went south. And every time, and so that was the antecedent, right? And every time I work with my horses, my goal is to help them to understand what I want in as easy of a way as possible. And that doesn't mean that we don't use negative reinforcement at all. That means I'd rather teach my horses, in this example, to want to stay with me at liberty than to teach them it's uncomfortable when they leave me. In other words, what I'm trying to say is one method works better than the other, but it doesn't mean that we shouldn't take the other one away. So again, I'm going to reiterate that. I'd rather teach my horses to learn to stay with me at liberty than to teach them I want to prevent them from leaving, than to have to correct them when they do leave. And I think that that is a big difference. I think it's a different way of looking at it. Just recently, someone had asked me if they could teach their horse liberty in a large arena, since she didn't have a round pen. And yeah, absolutely. again, my step-by-step method teaches the horse to connect and want to stay with you. My whole goal is to prevent them from leaving in the first place. And, if we can prevent them from leaving, that just means we're motivating them correctly to actually want to do this a lot more than when they do leave. And generally, when a horse leaves, it's because they don't understand what I want, or I didn't properly prepare them for that situation, such as in front of those large audiences, of teaching them that when they're distracted to still pay attention to me, that, that's pretty important. So, all right, I'm just gonna check here. I just want to make sure that I hit record on this thing. I think I did. So I'm just gonna stop sharing for just a hot second because it just dawned on me just to make sure that I did hit record. Yeah, okay, I did. Just because of all of the mess ups with the technology. So hopefully you guys are getting some value out of this so far, and that it's helping you to have a little bit better understanding of that journey and where we're going. Uh, Essentially, my training changed once I started focusing more on that psychology, and instead of trying to force behaviors or guess my way through the training, I started to make the decisions based on this actual science and understanding all of this, that how to create a learning environment that made my horses want to be part of the process. I think that overall, that's really what I'm trying to say, is I wanted my horses to really want to do this. And uh, now that doesn't mean that you, like a kid, not everybody wants to go to school. Children don't always want to go to school, but we send them to school, right? So it doesn't mean just because my horse doesn't want to do it, doesn't mean I'm going to say, oh, okay, well, I guess you don't need to do it, right? Um, but once I applied this knowledge, my training really completely transformed, and my horses responded much faster with more enthusiasm, and I finally felt like we were actually speaking the same language. And it was a game changer. I'm telling you, it was not just for my own horses, but for every client and horse that I've ever worked with since. It was a game changer. So we're going to talk a little bit about some of my clients here. Lisa, for example, she's full of energy, and so is her horse, Enzo. And when she came to me a little over a year ago, she had already been teaching Enzo some tricks, and she was eager to dive into Liberty. And, she just had this way of skipping a few steps here and there. And so she kept running into some roadblocks, right? And because she was skipping some steps and she was taking bigger steps, and she wasn't taking into consideration the psychology behind it at first. And she said to me in an interview with her, is that uh, she um, uh, the psychology, when she started to really realize the psychology and utilize it, that's when she started to see a bigger change with Enzo. Um, Prior to that, Enzo saw himself as the leader, and he often pushed into her space, and she really had those blind spots. She didn't even recognize that he was doing that. The first session with her, I recognized that and I pointed it out to her, and that's when it really opened her eyes. He even did some treat mugging. It wasn't until she invested in that mentorship with me that she began to see all of the underlying issues of having everything black or white with the horse, and having clear expectations, not gray areas, not inconsistencies. And if I were to say that those are the biggest mistakes people make, is that is it. It's the inconsistencies and not having clear expectations. Now, I'm not telling you to have an expectation that your horse should be able to just do a Liberty Circle today. We have to have a reasonable expectation for where that horse's level is. And I will say, One expectation I have, though, is always, always, always being respectful of my space, never stepping in my space. And that is a big expectation I will have. But anyway, one of the biggest things holding Lisa back was the lack of clarity in those expectations. And, Enzo had resistance and really, rather than working through it step by step, Lisa was unintentionally reinforcing the behaviors that Enzo was giving her. He would rear up, he would run off, and we had to peel back the layers, uncovering the root of his resistance and building her consistency and her communication, because once we did that, things started to change and we were able to fine tune her expectations, her approach. We had to kind of lower her expectations a little bit because they were too high, jumping a little bit too fast for what Enzo could do. She was trying to do trigonometry when Enzo really needed to learn algebra first. And so Lisa created a clearer dialogue with Enzo, and one that he could actually really understand. And so now Lisa and Enzo are thriving out there doing Liberty. She's achieving beautiful Liberty circles and performances. The two of them are actually performing together in front of some large audiences and competing with the ILHA as well. And what's felt like a struggle really has become a seamless partnership for the two of them, based on trust, understanding, and that clear communication. So now we're going to talk about Cindy. And Cindy lacked confidence in herself. She struggled just to catch her horse, Molly. Molly's a Mustang. Molly was kind of distant, uninterested. She'd even tried another online program that really didn't deliver the results she was hoping to get. The results were minimal. She got some things out of it, but she was really left feeling frustrated and stuck. And everything changed when she started learning a step-by-step process that gave her the clarity in her communication with Molly. And instead of feeling lost, she began to understand exactly what to do and why. So I tell people that the techniques are the what, and the psychology is behind that, is your tools in the toolbox that help you to understand why you're doing what you're doing. And when your horse does this, then you know how to do this. You have the tools in the toolbox to understand and make those decisions. So with each session with her and Molly, her confidence grew, and soon she was experiencing results she hadn't even thought possible. I mean, Molly started running up to her in the pasture instead of avoiding her, and I remember her messaging me quite a few times and telling me, Molly just ran up to me. She was doing Liberty circles with ease. Really the connection that Cindy had always wanted with Molly was finally there. And it all came down to getting guidance from a different perspective, right? She didn't just need another program. She needed someone who could look over her shoulder, who could actually teach her in live video step by step, who she could also watch videos through the program, all of that. And through the live video coaching and practicing the techniques in the program, she and Molly were able to transform their relationship together. Both of them gained confidence. Their communication flourished. They built a partnership that was once out of reach for Cindy. So that's a pretty cool story, because I know she messages me. In fact, I think she registered for this event. I don't know that she was able to make it on live tonight. So, or at least she was going to register for this event. So pretty exciting that she'll see that I pulled her out of this because I really like her story a lot. Tiffany came to me with a strong desire to do Liberty, and she had already been practicing on her own a little bit, but something was missing, kind of similar to my horses. Navi wasn't truly connected. Her circles were straight lines. If you are doing Liberty with your horse and you see that they are counterbent, they are looking away, you will lose your horse if you go into another environment. You will. Navi wasn't truly connected. Her, she would leave, and we'd see that. Uh, with no one in her area to help guide her through Liberty training, she decided to join my program and to try virtual coaching. I know that virtual coaching sometimes scares people. They think that they're doing it on their own, but we go on and we do live video, and I'm actually right. It's like I'm right there telling them what to do. And then we also have the step-by-step program. We're going to talk a little bit about that. But from the start with Tiffany, we focused on filling in the gaps. She had some gaps. We built a deeper connection, refined that communication, and incorporated behavior modification techniques alongside a more mindful approach, because we really needed to start making sure that we were using treats correctly, using the negative reinforcement correctly, which she was doing a really good job with that. And within 6 weeks, Tiffany was achieving beautifully connected Liberty circles and smooth changes of direction. In fact, today, she continues to follow my mentorship and is advancing to even higher levels with me. In fact, she's currently working on the haunches in and half passes at Liberty that I'm teaching her. And we're laying the foundation for a canter pirouette. So at Liberty, I also helped her to teach her horse how to lay down and how to sit up. So her journey is proof that with the right guidance, progress in Liberty is really limited. I'm just going to take another quick drink here. Hopefully it doesn't happen the way it happened last time and we lost internet. And then lastly, I wanted to talk about Miranda. Miranda wanted to learn Liberty, but her first attempt with a local trainer didn't work out for her. She was looking for more guidance, something that would truly help her develop the skills to communicate with her horse herself. And that's what drew her to my program. Since I couldn't just step in and actually do it for her, she had to listen more closely. She had to refine her approach. And ultimately, she had to gain more confidence in her ability as a result, because it's like, I'm here, I'm here to guide you, but I can't do it for you because you're how many miles away? She's out in Idaho and I can't do it for her, right? So her horse Butter is a Mustang, and Butter was also difficult to catch. It's a typical trait of Mustangs, and Butter had a habit of mugging for treats as well. But we addressed those challenges head on. Even treat mugging, it's about desired behavior versus undesired behavior. When somebody tells me that they can't give a treat to a horse because the horse will mug them, I tell them that they need to go back to reward the behavior we want, correct or ignore the behavior we don't want. And trust me, your horse will get it. But now Butter actually comes to her really easily. There's no more catching issues. The reactiveness that Butter once had has also improved. In fact, she's much more relaxed overall as a horse. And Mustangs, especially, have a tendency to carry a lot of tension, and that's definitely changed with her relationship with Butter. And the key with this one was slowing Miranda down, helping her, because she did some training of horses. She was training horses, but she was going too fast. She was skipping steps, and she needed to learn a little bit more on shaping behavior and helping her to focus on the smaller skills that would build Butter's behavior gradually, and rewarding that and really getting those reinforcers in. And that was a big piece to it. And by expecting less in the moment and refining the details, she ended up achieving a whole lot more. So, these are just a few of my clients and how they've achieved their goals with their Liberty journeys. And so many horse owners struggle with Liberty training, not because they lack dedication, but because they don't have that clear step-by-step process that works. And that's exactly what my program provides. The point in which I shifted from hitting my biggest low and figuring it out, that it's more than just the techniques. We can do Liberty all we want using negative reinforcement, and we can even throw some treats in there once in a while or whatever. But if we're not doing it correctly, and we're not shaping the behaviors, and we're not being consistent, we're not doing A, B, and C, then we're going to struggle. And right now, that I have an offer, a special offer for you guys, and I want to share it with you because it's for you and a friend. And this is the first time I've ever offered something like this, because I know that learning together is a great way to not only have fun, have more fun, but to also hold each other accountable, and to learn at a faster pace. And so, I want you to be the next people that I interview inside my Facebook group. And, and I think that uh, it just helps to get the right guidance here, right? This offer is something that I've, never offered, as I said, and it's an option where you and a friend can go through my complete Liberty training program, including the virtual live video coaching, all for the price of one. So you and one other person. I mean, that's a pretty big deal, because it's, I've never offered this before. So here's what you get. Let's take a look at what that program is. There's a step-by-step Liberty training framework, and it's the exact process. It's the videos that are out there to show you the exact process. It's the science also in there, so that you can learn the science in a manageable chunks, and they're not all thrown at you at once. But in the meantime, I'm telling you, do this, do this, do this, do this. And if your horse does this, do this, do this, do this. There's also weekly group coaching calls. So, for example, if you got some value out of tonight, this is just an example of a small sliver of what I dive into. Like tonight, later, I actually have a group coaching call for my clients, and it's about creating a relaxed Liberty horse, because a horse that has tension is going to leave us at Liberty. So, and in those group coaching calls, you can watch real-time feedback on training challenges. Sometimes I will pull up a client's video, or I might pull up something of my own. You also get, for you and your friend, you get live virtual coaching, okay? And that is 6 60-minute sessions for the two of you together. So you guys are together doing those 60-minute sessions, and we just kind of, go back and forth between the two of you, but it's through live video, okay? Personalized video feedback from me. You each, so there's modules, it's 12 modules, but it's really set up to be like 12 weeks, but you get 6 months in the program. And for each module, you get 5 minutes of video that you submit to me. So you each get 5 minutes of video. I review those training videos and give you direct tailored coaching for what you're doing to help you make the progress. There's a community area as well. I post extra training videos in there. There's, the training library and problem solving strategies. So, where we're working together, when I'm hearing over and over and over that somebody's having a problem in a certain area, I go back, I make video, and I post it for you to help you to better understand it, because I'm invested in your success to achieve your goals. In fact, I can tell you right now, I had a client reach out to me last night. It was 9 o'clock at night, Central Standard Time. And she had reached out with a question that she was having on something. And instead of just responding with a message or waiting until the next day, I actually hopped on a quick video call with her. And that way I was able to answer her question really quickly. And it was just easier to do it that way overall, and to help her to understand, because that's how invested I am into your success. So, I mean, this is the perfect time to join because, with this 2-for-1 special, you and a friend can train together for the price of one. So what's the investment, right? It is $797. Now, if you think about that's not for each of you, that's the two of you together. And that is 6 months in the program, but that's everything that you get. You get the 6 hours of virtual coaching, one on two or 2-on-1 or whatever you want to, however you want to put it. It's the two of you together. You also get the weekly group coaching sessions, which are an hour long. You also get the 5-minute video feedback, plus you get the whole library and everything. So, I mean, so that's the total price for the two of you to get everything that I mentioned above. And for you both to have your own separate logins and access. So you don't have to share the same login at all. You have it. And I'm only making this available until Tuesday, April 1st. And I'm only giving it to the first 5 pairs of friends to join my program because I can only take on so many people at once because I still have to deliver the results. It's still very important to me to deliver those results and to still have time to train my own horses. So it is going to be first to come, but you got to take the first step and schedule a Zoom meeting with me. I don't need for both of you to be on the call, but it certainly would be nice. And I'm going to put the link in the chat. I'm just going to copy this link here real quick. I'm going to put the link in the chat where you can schedule. You'll also get it in an email tomorrow. But you can schedule a call with me as long as you schedule that call with me. Even if our meeting doesn't quite take place before Tuesday, as long as you get, you make that appointment before Tuesday, I'll honor the special for you and hold your spot with it. So I'm just going to grab the chat here if I can find where it's at on my page. Oh my goodness, where is it? Everything disappears when you share a screen. Actually, if somebody wants to chat me quick, then I can actually respond in there. That would be great. Because otherwise I'm not finding it here. Oh, hey, there it is. It showed up. There we go. Okay, so here is the link. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna open it up for a few questions before we would hop off. I only have about 8 minutes total because I gotta hop on a coaching session, but I'm just gonna open it up here. If you've got any questions on any of the things that I talked about on the Liberty, anything, the program, anything. And you can unmute yourselves if you want to go ahead and just dive in and ask any questions.